This is wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Well, great being here. It is an exciting day. We're still in the middle of the election. As Petra just mentioned, we're in the canvass process. And that is really a very critical part of the process because we're still counting votes. They're still coming in. We have a lot of ballots that still need to be cured. We have our provisional ballots that we're still looking at. The canvass also is a process that we literally look at the whole election. And as a result of that, we also obtain additional ballots that may need to be adjudicated and will be included in the process. So that's the whole purpose of the canvass, is to make sure that we process every ballot that is here. And so those numbers that you saw in our report are certainly going to go up. It is a very, very close race. And we are still getting ballots coming in from other states and even overseas with an election postmark. So those ballots go all the way through November 17th, which is, this Friday, the 20th. It's 17 days after election that we can still accept those ballots. But let me just give you a brief overview. I know we have a lot to cover here. Keep in mind, we are still in the middle of the election. We're still in the middle of the canvass, and that election will be certified on December 3rd. So some of these numbers are subject to change, but I do want to give you just a brief overview of the election. I will go quickly simply because I know there's a lot on the agenda today. So I won't cover absolutely everything that's in this PowerPoint, but we gave this PowerPoint yesterday to the League of Women Voters, and we spent a lot of time on it and a lot of questions. But just a good overview for those of you who are not familiar with the statistics of the election, but we had 442,000 registered voters. It was an incredibly huge election, the most registered voters we've ever had in the history of San Mateo County with respect to election. We had 245 candidates, 163 seats up for election, 133 different ballot styles. That's a record also. Keep in mind what happened in this election is the convergence of a presidential election and also SB 415, which brought our 68 jurisdictions, we have 70 jurisdictions in San Mateo County, and brought the majority of them into even numbered year elections. So we're seeing a huge number of local elections also occurring with the presidential, which just increases just the sheer volume of the election in and of itself. We had 60 jurisdictions on the ballot, a lot of jurisdictions in district elections, adding to that jurisdiction count, 65 contests and offices, 11 measures, and 12 state propositions. In terms of our infrastructure, of course, we're a vote by mail county. A key feature in this election was our RAVVM, which was extended to, and that's RAVVM is remote accessible vote by mail. We were the first county in the state of California to do an RAVVM system, and that is a system that was designed for visually impaired voters that they can hook up link that we provide them on their computer, and they can mark voter in San Mateo County for this election. I have some statistics on how that was used too, and I won't get into that right now. But again, in terms of our infrastructure, we had 39 drop box locations, 45 vote centers, pop-up vote centers, a mobile vote center, which was really a new and innovative item, was the first in the Bay Area here, very popular. We had ballot pickup service locations and curbside ballot drop-off locations at all vote centers. And those were critical because keep in mind that this election, on top of being the largest election in the history of San Mateo County, was conducted in the COVID-19 environment, which has thrown a lot of election operations and polling places into a loop, but not for us here in San Mateo County. Thanks to you and the citizen groups that we have, the LAC, the VAC, and our staff, we started really planning this election 6 months ago, and we were COVID-19 prepared, and we saw that our vote centers were highly utilized, not as much as prior elections, but it was a constant stream throughout the early voting period, and it was really a pleasure to see literally lines every day, but they were only like about 10 deep rather than 150 deep or 200 deep as you find on election day. And that was on election day, we found pretty much the same number of people coming on election day as we did throughout the whole early voting period. Just give you an idea of the magnitude of the election. We had almost 400 ballot marking devices, printers, 121 mobile ballot printers. Those are the ones that allow us to print the different ballot styles at each vote center. Keep in mind that each vote center is an extension of our central office here, and we can print any ballot style at any vote center. That's the key to the Voters' Choice Act, is that in-person voting can occur at any one of those vote centers as opposed to polling places. 10X poll books, I'll tell you, those were absolutely critical in this election. They simplify the registration process. They simplify the management of the field vote centers. Incredible. They have dashboards, and it has access to the California voter registration database from a cloud-based operation. So even if the database went down, we still have access to some of that information to continue serving voters at vote centers. An incredible tool, and we're so fortunate to have that here. Cradle points are those, we had 51 of them. Those are our VPN connections that go from the vote center, that allow the vote centers to penetrate the county firewall to get to VoteCal. And without those, we have absolutely no connectivity. It's a tricky little device, but fortunately, our IT experts here in the department know how to handle that. And Ivan is really leading that back. Ivan also was critical in putting 412 GPS ballot box tracking devices, and those are those ballot boxes that are in vote centers. We wanted to make sure we knew where every ballot box was at any moment in time. So we had a screen, and we can actually see them traveling throughout the whole county. It was really neat. But this is the first time we've ever deployed this, which allows us to have a bird's eye view of where they're at. We had a lot of volunteers. All in all, I won't get into the numbers specifically, but when you boil it all down, we had about 1,300, 1,400 people working on this election, from regular employees to volunteers, which were absolutely critical. A lot of counties nationwide, and even in the state, were having problems with poll workers because of COVID-19. And we didn't find that here. We have a strong student democracy program. We had over 1,000 applicants just for the 600 positions that we had, and we had a lot of traditional volunteers coming through. So we did not have volunteer issues during this election. We had more volunteers, thank God, than we needed. And I'll just go past this one. This is kind of COVID-19, as I mentioned, was really a very critical part of this election. It was an umbrella over everything that we did. It was extremely challenging, but staff handled it extremely well. And so did the voters, by the way. So every vote center, and we notified the public before the election that our vote centers were going to be COVID safe, and they were. We invested over $100,000 in plexiglass at all of our vote centers, all of our facilities. We practiced social distancing. Folks were required to wear masks, whether you're an employee or a voter, and we sanitized the equipment and the facilities daily. Okay, here's some statistics on this election, which are really impressive to date. Now, keep in mind, these numbers are changing as we speak, because we are in the middle of the canvass, and we expect them to change before certification. But right now, you know, we're looking at about 378,000 ballots that have been received, which is a 17% increase over 2016, and that was the final count. And that's about a 17% increase, which is pretty significant when you compare the two elections. Our voting patterns, again, another interesting statistic. We had 91% of the ballots that came through were vote by mail. Usually, the last election, we saw a ratio of 85 to 15. So about 15% of the folks came to the vote centers to vote in person, and about 85% did it by mail. In this particular case, it was over 90%. And the number of people attending the vote centers, relatively speaking, went down, although, you know, it was a presidential election. Compared to the presidential primary, we had equal numbers, even though that only had about a 54% voter turnout. So we did see a lot of folks coming to the vote centers over an extended period of time, but nevertheless, a lot less than what we normally expected. The last two elections were 15 and 12%, and this one was about 8%. Another interesting statistic is the VBMs return before election day. Usually we have about a 60-40 ratio. 60% come on or before, before election day, and then about 40% after election day. In this election, we've seen almost 90% of the VBM ballots returned before election day, which is very impressive. And vote center votes before election day were about 60%. That means a lot of people were coming in during the early voting period, starting October 5th. Honestly, with our 3 vote centers, again, which are not a requirement of the law, San Mateo County does that as a practice and a tradition. But starting October 5th, when we opened up those 3 vote centers, it felt like election day. There were lines, not deep, but still 10, 12 people. It felt like election day, and it felt like election day during the 29-day period. And that's why these votes were spread out. And really, it was a comfortable election at the vote centers because of early voter turnout. This was the highest turnout in the last 50 years. We're at 86. I think we're going to be higher than that. We'll probably be at 87, maybe even higher than that. And that's the highest in the last 50 years. You have to go back to 1960, and that was the Nixon-Kennedy race, and that had a 90% voter turnout, which is the highest in the history of San Mateo County. This is just a bird's eye view of the vote centers in-person turnout comparisons. As you can see, it's usually flatlined, the top 2 lines, flatline, nobody shows up at the vote centers until election day, as you can see by those bar graphs. But in this election, which was the lower graph line, the red one there, and you can see that pretty much the whole period of time we had a good turnout. And on election day was very, very controllable. It was 11,000 people showed up at the vote centers compared to 25,000 during a much smaller election in March and 87,000 during the 2016 presidential election. Again, a bar graph with respect to the ballots received and comparisons there. I kind of covered that. Very interesting statistic there. A really great new feature was our mobile vote center. Staff came up with the idea, and we deployed it, and we targeted communities like Pescadero, Half Moon Bay. Extremely popular and very valuable to the people who were there that could use them. I anticipate you're going to see this in the future. It was a great service to the community, and it worked very, very well. We had some good statistics. Basically, about 1,400 folks used that vote center during the early voting period. We also had a super center. We were anticipating large voter turnout on election day, like in the past. So we had an overflow center that we really had a lot of voters coming in on election day that could handle that capacity. So we had the expo center set up for that purpose. This is a copy of it. What was really popular with the expo center was the drive-through that we had there. The majority of the people that did use that center used our ballot drop-off, and that was popular. And so a lot of people did, from the convenience of their car, to simply drop their ballots off without having to go into the vote center. Remote accessible vote by mail, I mentioned that before. We had about 1,300 ballots accessed, and as of November 16th, we had 667 folks participate in that program locally. And these are, again, voter education and outreach, near and dear to your heart. These were some of the key and innovative programs that San Mateo County has been known for over the years in the Voters' Choice Act. And it was with our partners, such as the VEOAC, and not to mention the LAC and the VAC, which are absolutely essential to the planning process. All of these groups put together what I consider to be a model program for other registrar voters to follow. It was great working with the Silicon Valley Community Foundation and the community-based organizations and trusted messengers to get the word out. We'll hear more about that. And we're also having a report on both the primary and the presidential election being prepared by Mindy Romero with the Center for Inclusive Democracy. And on that note, I will answer any questions whenever you would like. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody have any questions for Jim while he's here?
Yes, I do. Hi, Jim. This is Henrietta. I was wondering, how much does the increase in ballots cast reflect any increase in the population?
You know, the population increase, you always have a slight population increase, but I think it was de minimis. I really do believe it was the race itself, the presidential race, the measures, the candidates is what generally brings people out to the polls. So I don't think that it was a function of population increase. I believe it was a function of a highly interesting race where people were motivated to actually cast their votes. And we have to give credit where credit was due, and the efforts that you folks have put forth and that we have put forth to work with our voting public in terms of voter education and outreach, and the communications that we had early on to let people know that voting was safe and secure in San Mateo County, particularly vote by mail with everything that was going on there and with COVID-19. I think key to the success of this election was the early voter education and outreach, where those cards went out and people were advised, you know, we're COVID safe, vote early, don't delay, and that voting in San Mateo County by mail is extremely safe. I think all of that really would impact voter turnout, not population growth.
Now, that having been said, did you have more registered voters?
Absolutely, yes. This is the largest number of registered voters we've had in the history of San Mateo County. We had about 444,000. I had that number up earlier, but yes, that is a record-breaking voter registration turnout, up significantly from March, which was the highest at that point in time, and that was bordering closer to about 400,000.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So Jim, this is Diane. Do you have any numbers on the how many people use same-day registration?
Yes, we're looking conditional voter registration. We were in the neighborhood of around 4,000 or so. Those are the CVRs and the provisional ballots that we're currently processing right now, as a matter of fact, because those are the last ones basically that are tabulated after we do all of our other tabulation and canvassing, is when those ballots are provided. And if my numbers are correct, we had about just over 4,000 in that area.
So will you be able to determine whether those are people that waited to the last minute to either change their voter registration, they had moved and they hadn't updated it, versus how many were brand new voters?
We'd have to look at that. Possibly. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. We do have the dates, of course, you know, when they were filed and applied. But as to, you know, the last minute, that would be how many came in on election day. And we can look at that. But I know that we had conditional voter registration going on for a while throughout the early voting period.
Right. No. Yeah. The reason I'm asking is we had some anecdotal information that a lot of people that were using the conditional voter registration were registering to vote for the first time, which surprised us. So that's why it would be nice to, you know, if possible, to, you know, to dig into those numbers a little bit more to see if that really was the case.
We'll take a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Jim, I have another question, and I don't remember it covered in your statistics, and I'm wondering if you would know whether a lot of people voted only for, let's say, the president and the state assembly members and not for the rest of the ballot. There's some people who just come in and vote for the president and vice president and leave the rest. Any way of knowing?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're speaking about. And those are called undervotes, which immediately means that the ballot will be challenged. So if we see an overvote or an undervote on a ballot, it goes to adjudication and then it's reviewed for voter intent. And yes, you know, there are a lot of ballots go with undervotes, especially when you have a long ballot. There is a term in election circles called voter fatigue. That means when you have so many measures, so many candidates, so many complex issues that people get burned out after the first card and they don't fill out the rest. And those are usually the lower down races. And that does tend to happen. But I can't pin down exactly how many, just voted for president and how many, didn't, let's say, vote for the other offices. But what I can tell you is we had a huge number of challenge ballots, and the majority of those are overvotes and undervotes. Overvotes are minimal, but the huge majority were undervotes, and we're talking large numbers, over 20,000, 30,000.
So why are undervotes a problem? I mean, people have a right, if they only want to vote for the top candidates and not vote for the rest of the ballot.
No, you're right, absolutely right. It's not a problem from that perspective. It's a challenge for us that every vote card that is not completely filled becomes a challenged ballot and must go through another step in the process of adjudication to determine the voter intent. Did they intend to not vote for those races? So we then need to look at every card that is undervoted to see if maybe those marks just missed the box, or are there no box marks? So basically, it's absolutely the prerogative of every voter to just vote for the election that they want. And when I mention, it's a challenge simply because of the large number that have to be adjudicated the moment they're undervoted.
How many were there?
Well, the last number that I remember was, and this was a couple of weeks ago, we had about 23,000, but I would have to say that we're probably over the 30,000 mark or more. And I don't have that number right off the top of my head, but I do know when I looked at it a couple of weeks ago, it was over, 24,000.
They will still count?
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole purpose of adjudication, is to determine voter intent. So if that box meant to be marked, but the person missed the mark, we'll see what the characteristic of all of the marks are on the ballot. And if that mark is consistent with those other marks, then, and they just missed the box, we would say the voter intent was to hit that box. If there's no mark at all, and that's pretty easy. The challenging ones are the ones that you have two marks and then you have a circle and an arrow that goes all the way up to the top, and you go, okay, which vote did you really intend here, right? You have an X through it and an arrow that goes up to the top. You kind of follow, the breadcrumbs there, and then you can determine, I think, at that point in time, what the voter intent was. But that's what adjudication does, and we have great technology and great equipment to do that. So we're very, very fortunate with our Dominion audit mark system to be able to really pin down from a pixelation point of view what those marks are and voter intent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, I want to thank you so much for all of this great information. And I have two questions. One is, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint?
Sure.
Okay. And the second one was, can you go back to the slide about how people voted?
Okay. Where do we go back? Let's see. You tell me when to stop.
Okay.
Slow.
That
one. Okay. Go
next
back.
one further forward.
There you go.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a ton of information. You did this very quickly.
I did. I wanted to make sure you have enough time for the other guests here in this meeting.
I appreciate that, but I think all of us are kind of fascinated by this.
Jim, it's Jack. One question that I had, the vote by mail ballots, the 91.36%, how does that break down, or do you have this data between folks that use the drop boxes or return them to the Postal Service?
We have that broken down by ballot drop box, and we also have it broken down by vote center. And I don't have that statistic off the top of my head, but those are statistics that we certainly do have and that we report, so we'll be able to do that. And again, as I mentioned when we started the presentation here, we're still in the middle of the election. We're still canvassing. You know, that election is not going to be certified till December 3rd. We are still processing ballots. We're adjudicating ballots as we speak. So let's certify the election. Let's get all of these numbers together. And then we're going to put together another report at that point in time. And we'll jot down these questions that you have here and be able to break down those ballots by section, ballot drop-off, vote centers, etc.
Great, thank you.
So approximately how many more ballots would you guess are not
That's
reflected?
a question that's so hard to answer, and people say, well, why? You know, well, it's because it's a very fluid process. You know, we still have ballots, as I mentioned, coming in through the 17th. We have those challenged ballots. Remember those challenged ballots we're talking about? They're still there, and those challenged ballots have to be cured or can be cured by the voter. So it's a process that we're reaching out to the voter, trying to get and most of those challenged ballots are no signature or signature no match. So it's a process to get those ballots cured, but those are coming in also. And then the adjudication, and then we have CVRs, as I mentioned, which are usually, you know, they are at the very tail end. Provisional ballots are also, you know, tabulated at the very end. We've got the lion's share of those, but then we're going through a canvas, and the canvas in and of itself will find ballots that need to be adjudicated or should be adjudicated. And we're in that process right now. So, you know, in the aggregate, we've got at least, you know, at least a couple of thousand ballots out there, maybe even more.
Do you have the volunteers you need for curing and the other activities that you need to go through?
Yes, we don't use volunteers for curing. We use paid staff simply because the information is confidential in nature, and they have to be trained to the Secretary of State standards to basically do signature verification. Unlike you hear in the press in other states and counties throughout the nation where you have a machine that is making that determination. In San Mateo County, we have that machine too, that we take the digital image and then it goes through a process that we have a human eye literally look at every vote by mail ballot that comes in to match it to the signature on the registration card. And we even have prior history with respect to those signatures that we also compare to. So it's a very elaborate process where you need trained personnel to do it. So we don't do it with volunteers. And we have a great staff. We have about 15 people that are you know, trained just to do that. And I'm amazed when I sit down with them. It's amazing, and it's a very focused, concentrated effort. It takes a very special person to be able to do that, and we don't use a machine to make that determination.
I have one more question. Is there one thing that like totally surprised you? One like thing that you're taking away from this particular election?
Yes, and I would say, and I'm trying to put this in a positive light, that the voting public really listened to your message, really listened to Mr. Church's message. First of all, if you go back to the beginning of this election, the national rhetoric out there regarding vote by mail and the fact that was, you know, fraudulent in nature, it was not safe and secure, COVID-19 environment that we were in, that started, you might recall, way back, you know, in the summertime, and it's been around for a while. And thanks to the VEOAC, and again, thanks to, you know, Diane and Petra, you guys helped us on one of those cards, all of the cards really, but I know we had some that needed to get out really quickly on that messaging. And the messaging was our theme right from the beginning, and Jack was part of this process too, with our trusted partners here. The messaging was, and it had to be right from the beginning, to counterbalance the negative discord that was out there, that San Mateo County is different. We are experienced in vote by mail elections. We've been doing this since 2015. We were the first county in the state of California to do this. That San Mateo County voters can rest assured that voting by mail is safe and secure. And that is also safe and secure with respect to COVID-19. So we had two challenges there. And we started that communication early in the game. And I really didn't know if it was going to be successful. I kind of expected that we were going to have the old voting pattern, and this is what we prepared for, as you can see by our super center, that everybody's going to wait till election day and show up at the polls, right? And it didn't happen. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is that people were actually listening and following instructions, because we said, vote today, don't delay. And it was incredible. I've never experienced anything like that, that during the early voting period, we had so much voter involvement. And again, hats off to Mr. Church and the prior registrar of voters that have set up our vote center network in San Mateo County from, the first day of the early voting period. Unlike other counties, we had 3 vote centers out there, north, central, and south, and people took advantage of them. So it was a combined effort, but I was just, I guess there's any takeaway, I'm amazed at how smooth everything went in terms of the actual voting process in this county.
I'm wondering, is it possible to ask one more question? Petra?
Yes,
I'm open. I'll stay here as long as you
Okay.
like.
Thank you. You had mentioned the volunteers who came in were traditional volunteers. And given that a lot of volunteers at the voting centers have traditionally been seniors, I'm wondering if you saw more involvement in terms of young people volunteers and in terms of younger voters, what any increases or insights can you bring?
Great question, because we were discussing that early in the process. We really felt that we were going to have a challenge with our traditional volunteers, which are seasoned, volunteers. They've been with us a long time, and also as part of the population that is more at risk with COVID-19. So we thought that we were going to have some challenges there. But we saw about a 50-50 ratio. I think we lost about half of the folks that traditionally were our volunteers. And keep in mind, since we've moved to a vote by mail process, we used to have poll worker volunteers in the polling place environment. Now, most of those aren't volunteers, they're vote center representatives. And then we supplement them with volunteers. But to your question, yeah, I think we lost about 50% of our original group. We saw a huge, absolutely incredible turnout with respect to youth volunteers. And again, we have a very strong student democracy live program where we work with all of the high schools. And so we had that in place for many years. I know we got calls from the press that other registrars were having problems with volunteers, et cetera. We didn't have that because we already had a network in place, particularly with the schools, and they turned out in mass. We had over 1,000 applicants, and we basically hired 600 of them. So they really filled a big gap there. And then you had your traditional volunteers. You had another 600 or so that were actually very, very interested in volunteering in terms of community service. So we were very, very fortunate here in San Mateo County that from the volunteer perspective, we had some seasoned volunteers that came back, and then we had the youth, and we had our other volunteers that just came in as a result of wanting to serve. In terms of voter turnout, and I'm here in Tower Road, and I had an opportunity to kind of observe daily. So this is not a statistical or an empirical scientific analysis on this, but I'll tell you, the 2 largest groups that I saw were seniors that voted. There was a huge amount of seniors that voted during that early voting period that came through here, and youth. And of course, you have your traditional population also that showed up. But I was impressed at the numbers at both ends of the circle. I would say that it's kind of the seniors are expected because they're a group that really does vote. But I was just amazed at how many came through the doors here to vote at a vote center. I guess a lot of them are the traditionalists that like to vote on a machine. So we saw a lot of seniors walking through, and we saw a lot of youth and first-time voters. They were coming through the door. A lot of youth.
Thank you.
we have 2 quick more questions and then
Sure.
we could move on, but Linda and then Chris.
Hi, Jim. Good morning. It's Linda Wolven. you sort of already answered my question because I was going to ask about the student ambassador program, and maybe you had a screen, maybe it was 2 before this one, where you started to show statistics. But both Petra's and my sons participated in that and really enjoyed the process. And I'm just wondering, do you do kind of a debrief with the students or any kind of survey with them? And I mean, it was such an amazing level of interest from the students this year. And Petra made the point that there were a lot available because of distance learning. It made it a little easier for them to participate. But I think there's also just a level of engagement from the youth that's really important. So I'm just wondering kind of a debrief, how that works. And then I have another question.
We have not planned for a debrief there. We are in contact with the teachers and the principals and the superintendents that are part of that, but we don't sit down and debrief with the students and the volunteers. It's a great idea, particularly in this election. So something we'll certainly take under advisement here, because that's a good thought. But it is a really strong program. I know Mr. Church has gone out to the schools to talk about the student democracy program and encourage student volunteers. So we have that engagement. We don't have a debrief per se, but that's not a bad idea. In fact, it's a great idea.
Okay, thanks. No, I appreciate that. And sorry about the noise in the background. My other question has to do with just a reminder of the schedule. So you said that the certification of votes would be on December 3rd, but can you remind when the statement of the vote is due? And will you or Mr. Church be giving a similar presentation about sort of the, statistics of the elections to the board at any time? Is that planned?
Yeah, first things first, and that is the certification of the vote. And the statement of the vote is at the same time. We will go ahead and send that off to the Secretary of State immediately thereafter. We were planning, the board meeting is on, I think, the 8th, and the timing was that we wouldn't have the statement of the vote or the certification in time for the Brown Act requirement to send it to the board on that meeting. And it's not a requirement anyway that we do it immediately, thereafter. So it looks like we're going to the board in January, and that will be primarily to accept the vote, the certification of the election by the board. We are, after we go through this process, we're going to digest all this information. We're going to put it into a report like we've done in the past, and we will send it to the board and all of the elected officials in San Mateo County. So that's coming down the line, but I just want to make sure there's a lot of information we need to kind of digest and put into a report format, because there's a lot of really great things that happened in this election. And I think we need to document that for the record and share that with everyone, because really, and this was truly a community election. Everybody pulled together to make this a success. And so thank you all, particularly the VEOAC and our citizen advisory groups.
Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, Jim. Good morning. My name's Chris. I'm calling from the Asian Law Caucus. And I feel like maybe you had already answered a similar question with Jack's question about distribution of votes. But I was wondering if you had any initial thoughts on either facsimile distributions or 2 or 3 languages, specifically about ballots that were provided in not English, or if that would be available later on in a further report.
It will be available later on. So the numbers are there. We just haven't, distilled them at this stage of the game, since we're still in the middle of certifying.
No worries, yeah.
But those are incredibly important numbers and interesting numbers, and we will be putting all that together. Yes, we will have that.
Great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Jim, we really want to thank you for your partnership, and we are looking forward to the final report. So we will invite you back for our December VEOAC. And then we're going to go on with our agenda. But we really appreciate how much time you spend talking to us and telling us what the numbers were and stuff. We are all election geeks here, so we really appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much, Petra. It was my pleasure.
Before we go to the next, to sharing a little bit, is Diane and Sarah and I put together just 2 slides that we just thought were really interesting. Sarah, do you want to share the screen? My Sarah, sorry.
Sure.
Thrive Sarah. I just thought you guys might be interested in this because it's interesting. This was a comparison of San Mateo County versus other counties, and just obviously the election isn't complete yet, but this is what we have right now. And San Mateo County is super engaged. Like, our voter turnout's way above California, way above the nation. And we also are extremely partisan here, which probably isn't a surprise for any of you, but to actually see the numbers, to me was really interesting. So, Sarah, do you want to go to the next slide? So the other thing that was interesting was that if San Mateo County decided for all of California, a bunch of the ballot measures would have turned out differently. So, and all of this just points to that San Mateo County is super progressive. But we would have passed Prop 15, which didn't pass, the commercial property tax. We would have passed the affirmative action ballot measure, which didn't pass. And there was, and we would not have passed the app-based delivery drivers one. Oh, and the cash bail. So
In the cash bail. Mhm.
yeah, so that's actually pretty significantly different from what actually happened in California. So I'll just leave this up for a minute. Does anybody have any comments or any thoughts about this?
Yay, San Mateo County.
Yes, how did those figures compare in terms of Santa Clara County? Would you know?
We didn't do the math. This,
Yeah.
this took plenty of time. If anybody wants to pull it up, they're welcome to.
Could you go back a moment to your first slide?
So yeah, I was thinking it would be fun to compare like all of the counties, but then I realized that there are only a certain number of hours in the day.
Yes, you're right.
But
And
very-
it took enough time just for the ones you did.
Henrietta, because I work in both counties, Santa Clara County is very similar. I believe it was like 5% higher for Trump, but really not that much different. And then on the ballot measures, I think it was pretty consistent across the board. But if I remember looking at the preliminary numbers, they do not count as quickly as Jim and his team do, which is worthy to note. So they're a little bit behind. There's, I think, 15,000, 20,000 uncounted ballots in Santa Clara County. So we're still waiting on a lot of those figures.
Thanks, Jack.
I think Cal Matters did a piece for county yesterday, and the Bay Area counties and LA all rated.
Sarah, it's hard to hear you. Can you speak up a little? Okay, Sarah, now we can't hear you at all.
It says she has bad audio in the chat.
Okay. Oh, Cal Matters did a piece on this yesterday. Thank you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is a lot of talk about how California.
How progressive are we?
Yes, how progressive are we, and are we just everybody's in their little bubble, and how different that is. So, great. So we'll put a link when we do our follow up to this. We'll put a link to the Cal Matters article. We'll also put a link. We'll also include these 2 slides and the Jim's slides as well. Sarah from the elections office, Sarah O'Brien, do you have anything you want to add? And
I have to do that unmute business. No, Jim covered everything.
great. So I want to give everybody a quick opportunity to share out about how their election experience was. We have about 10 minutes, I want to focus on the people who were not funded through the SVCF grant. So if you were not funded by the SVCF grant, we would love to hear any reflections on your outreach or reflections on the election, lessons learned. You guys are generally not shy people.
David, aren't you with We Redwood City? Is that
Me?
You
Well,
mean
yeah, so I'm working with We Redwood City and Indivisible and a few other groups, and I just managing the social media for a lot of groups in the area, and everyone just seemed especially hungry for any information about when to vote, how to vote. You know, just the engagement was just like super amazing.
Thank you.
This is Anne from the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo. And what we found was that doing our candidate forums and our pros and cons on Zoom, we had a much higher turnout. So we're contemplating, thinking about ways maybe to do this as a hybrid when we go back to normal, have continue to do in-person candidate forums, but also provide the video option.
And we posted your videos on our page and got a lot of views after we hosted. So I
great.
Totally agree with that.
Thank you.
This is Andy Winter from Senior Co-Siders. I can maybe go next. So we had a voting ballot box here in our lobby so that our seniors could have an opportunity to vote without having to go far away from their homes. We used a lot of the Thrive every Monday when we got the text about different things that we could be posting on our social media. We did that. And then also through our home delivery meal program, we used our inserts, the little notices that we put in the bags every time we deliver meals to encourage people to vote and explain various issues. And so we felt that we did our bit to try and make voting as simple and safe as possible for the older adults in our community here. So thank you so much to Thrive for all of the educational content. It was really helpful. And I would say the other thing that I found really helpful was leading up to this, both Thrive and Cal Nonprofits did a lot of education about, to the extent to which nonprofits can lobby and what it's okay to say and what we shouldn't be saying. And I also found that really helpful as well. So thank you for all of the support. It was very appreciated.
Oh, that's terrific to hear.
So this is Charmaine, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the results are like from Daly City, South San Francisco, Colma, as far as voter turnout, because San Francisco People Power did do a number of online registrations with students from Skyline, and it was really helpful. I mean, they seem very enthusiastic about just sort of like passing on the message about getting their families and their friends to go out and register. So lots of really enthusiastic youth turnout, and that might be one way to try to capture or just increase voter registration in those areas that have been so challenging in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the tools that anybody can use is you can go on the smcvote.org website and go into the elections portal and bring up voter turnout. And there's a map that will show you what the turnout is in each individual precinct. Just know where it says eligible voter, it actually means registered voter. And just looking at it right now, there's an awful lot of green, meaning that the voter turnout was greater than 75%. There's a few parts of the county in the south, especially where the turnout was under that. But it was really nice to see, especially as they counted all the ballots, to see more and more spots turning green. So you may want to go check that out as well.
Like in North County, Diane?
Excuse me?
What was it like in North County?
Well, Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm looking at the map right now. So, so I'm looking at in like the Broadmoor area, it was 86%.
Wow, that's
Around
good.
Ceremony was 81%. Even out on the coast, like in Pacifica, it looks like it was over 80%. Again, you got to know, I mean, sometimes it's hard to match the precinct to the city from the map. But again, if you look at this map, it's all green. Yeah, and Jack has the link, and thank you, Jack. Because you can narrow down to the specific precinct, which again, sometimes it's hard to know exactly where you are and matching the precinct to the city. But again, you can get a general feel by parts of the county, even the coast, Half Moon Bay, Montera, Pescadero. I mean, it's all pretty green.
Diane, the coast is always a strong area for voting.
I thought it wasn't. I thought that's one of the reasons why we try to focus on, like in Pescadero and.
Well, it's percent of registered voters, right?
Right. But anyway, so it's definitely, as I said, and it really changed just as the votes came in. So obviously a lot of people were doing the vote by mail, and it was taking a while to count all those ballots. But it's fun, I would take some time and take a look at communities that you're interested in to see how they did.
Yeah, thank you.
Chris, do you have anything to share just from Asian Law Caucus's perspective about either our county or kind of what you saw?
Yeah, I actually wanted to share that our poll monitoring program was a huge success this year. I think we had over 300 volunteers in 11 different counties across NorCal, so really impressive. I personally actually poll monitoring in San Mateo County, and I got to interface with a couple of the high school students who were volunteering at different polling places. We are still in the process of analyzing that data, and we'll definitely be able to share that with both the San Mateo County ROV and also with Thrive when those reports get finished. But apart from our poll monitoring work, we also did a lot of individual efforts. I know I've seen Marnie and Charmaine on a couple community-based presentations or just talking with youth in San Mateo County. We also did a little bit of Know Your Voting Rights materials. So we generated a very diverse breadth of materials from like how to vote to language access. And we had those materials translated in over 20 different languages.
Did you get many calls about any issues with having access to materials in languages other than English in San Mateo County?
I think for San Mateo County, again, since I was in the field, I wasn't necessarily in the headquarters for the first day. But for the most part, San Mateo County is looking pretty good in terms of like the execution side.
Good.
Yeah, I think we have like a couple suggestions like here and there, but overall very impressed by the county's performance.
Do you have a plan to meet with Jim and Sarah and the team after the election, just to share what little feedback you might have?
Yeah, I think that should be one of my coworkers' lane or her purview. But yeah, I'm sure we do have a plan to follow up with the county on that end.
Yeah, well, I think we've also, you guys have also presented at one of the VEOAC meetings once you've gotten your report complete. So we usually hear about it as well at a VEOAC meeting.
Every election, Asian Law Caucus provides valuable information, helping us to continue to improve our access to voters in any language. We look forward to your feedback. It's always helpful.
So we're going to continue meeting. VEOAC isn't over because the election's over. So we'll, next month when we meet, hopefully we'll have some final numbers from the elections office, and then either then or in January we'll have Asian Law Caucus present as well, so we can go over things, and eventually we'll get information from Mindy Romero as well. Pam?
Yes, good morning. I have a question. Mark Berman, I believe, is working on a permanent vote by mail. And I was wondering if San Mateo County and VEOAC wouldn't be logical people to work with him, since we have the expertise and have shown how successful we are. Just a thought.
That's a terrific thought and super important. And we should follow up.
Mm.
Does anybody want to take the charge on that? Lead the charge on that?
I can do that. I know the folks at Mark Berman's office pretty well.
Okay,
So-
why don't you ask them what we can do to help?
Okay, I will do that. I'll copy you on that, on a message.
Okay.
Would you also copy me, being
Yeah.
that Mark Berman is in Menlo Park?
Right, sure. Okay, Pam and Petra, I'll copy you on, I'll send it to Zach Ross, which is was his office director. And he's really usually on top of these things.
Terrific. Thank you. And one of the things we talk about often in San Mateo, and I think this kind of relates back to like how progressive we vote and all of that, is that very often we can kind of be an example and lead the way. And as Jim said, you know, we've been doing this for a long time, and the elections office has been doing an amazing job of doing this, and to just show that this can be done and that this is successful is useful. So I appreciate the idea, Pam, of helping out to try to get this passed for all of California.
And that reminds me that with the census, with all of the headaches and challenges that we faced, still, and Mark Berman is also the lead on the census for the state, and San Mateo County was at the top of the California self-response rate. And so a lot of the effort by this group really contributed to San Mateo County being on the top of the response rate. And that's something really to be proud of.
Totally agree. Almost everybody on this call was a part of the census outreach work too. So
Right. And whenever we did election outreach, we did census outreach and vice versa.
And it worked. And I want to just mention that Lisa Taylor had to go, but she did a nice shout out to Henrietta for her work on the Voting While Black Zoom session. So thank you, Henrietta. We're going to transition now from regular VEOAC to, I'm going to hand it over to Jack, to Grantee Reports. So everybody who's not SVCF grantee, thank you guys so much for coming, and we'll let you know when the next VEOAC is. And I will hand this to Jack.
And have a safe Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Stay home.
Stay
home.
Please. Oh, quickly, actually, just so you know, Thrive is going to be very involved in COVID outreach, specifically to the kinds of communities you guys are working on. So we'll have to talk more about that at some other time. And you guys are all invited to our holiday mix and mingle on December 16th, which is mix and mingle with your legislative aides. It's a great opportunity to build up those relationships with people like Zach, so that we can have stronger nonprofit government relations. So, my quick commercial. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Great. All right, so it looks like we're getting down to just those of you who participated in the San Mateo County Voter Engagement Project, which is great. If you would like to stay on and you weren't part of the program just as an observer, that's totally fine too. Yeah, and let's see. I think we have most folks. We're missing a couple people. I'm just going to begin to share my slides here. Okay, let's see. Okay, can people see this? Yep, okay, thanks for nodding, Diane. All right. Okay, so looks like we have a critical mass of votes. So I have a couple of slides just to kind of, construct our conversation, provide a little bit of focus. Here's the way we're gonna do this. Just as a reminder, because we've only met, I think, twice as a group, and a lot has happened in your work, in the world, and so on. Since we got started, I figured we could start with some introductions, just to remind everyone what the different projects were. I'm going to spend some time reviewing the final purpose and just summarizing a little bit of what the different organizations were, some of the restrictions that we had, and so on. The bulk of the time, I hope, is that we can spend sharing some results, and these are the outcomes that we asked you for in my previous email. Just what you were seeking to do, the number of folks that you reached, the number of programs that you ran, anything else that you think is pertinent. And then I'm also going to, at the end, talk a little bit about turnout. I have looked at least the preliminary turnout figures that we have in San Mateo County, so I do have some idea of kind of where we're ending up, and we can talk about that at the end, but I don't want that to overshadow the work that you all are doing in the conversation that we're about to have. So we'll talk about that more at the end. And then I'll also just spend some time talking about how we can close out this project, what we can do for the future, and some future grant making opportunities that definitely are of interest to most of the organizations that are on this call. Okay, so let's do this popcorn style. So I'll introduce myself and call on someone else, and hopefully that person can call on someone down the line until we get through all of the people that are on the call. So I'm Jack Mahoney. I am Senior Program Officer at Silicon Valley Community Foundation, working on our Movement and Power Building program, which is very new. But yeah, that is me. Petra, can I nominate you to keep this going?
Petra Sultan, the Director of Advocacy and Education for Thrive Alliance, the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. And Jack, do you want to stop sharing screen so we can see each other?
Yeah, I can do that. That's a very.
It's for the introduction part.
All right, there we go. All right, Petra, you got to call on someone else.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Rolando.
Well, good morning, everyone. Sorry, I was in and out of the camera here. Working from home has its own challenges with my two young kids. But Rolando Madrid, Senior Director of Programs for the Boys and Girls Clubs of North San Mateo County. So excited to be part of this group. And before I end, I want to thank everybody for sharing just great resources, those one-pagers, all those great information that we got. We were able to grab it and send it out to our community, and they were so appreciative of that. So thank you to everyone who provided that great information to us with regards to voting. And I want to swing over, and I was out for a little bit, so forgive me if you've been called on. Mr. Julio Garcia.
There you go. Hi, my name is Julio Garcia with Nuestra Casa in East Palo Alto. Let me see, Diane. You're muted, Diane.
Yep, there we go. Okay, Diane Leeds. I'm with San Francisco Peninsula People Power, and I'll call on Glenn.
Hi, I'm Glenn Olson with the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, and I'll call on Cheryl.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cheryl Munoz Bergman, also with the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area. And I'll just give my apologies now because I'm going to have to head off to a different meeting at 10:30, but really glad to be able to participate with you today. Thanks. And I will call on Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Clark from the League of Women Voters in South San Mateo County. Happy to be here, and I'll call on Marnie.
Hi, my name's Marnie Rubin, and I'm also with the League of Women Voters, South San Mateo County. I'm the Voter Services Director. And I will call on Karen Chin.
Hey everyone, Karen from the Peninsula Boys and Girls Club. I direct a college and career success program. I'm pass it to Erica.
Hi everyone, my name is Erica, and I am with the Mid-Peninsula Boys and Girls Club, and I'll pass it on to Alicia.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alicia Tulua, and I'm with One East Palo Alto. And I will call on Henrietta.
Hi, thanks, Alicia. I'm Henrietta Burrows from the East Palo Alto Center for Community Media, EPA Today, and Talking with Henrietta. And I'm happy to be here. I'm just an interesting observer. And I'll call on Pam Jones.
Thank you, Henrietta. Pam Jones, and a member of the League of Women Voters. I helped a little bit with them this time, and a member of VEOAC, and I always talk about my lovely neighborhood, Bellhaven, in Menlo Park. And I will call on Adam. Have you spoke?
Hi, everyone. Adam Elschultz, Assistant Director for South San Francisco Public Library. Has there anybody not been called on? Sorry, I had to step away for a minute. I was logged in as staff and that looked weird.
Okay, Benny, I don't think we've gotten to you yet. Have we? Yeah, you're still on mute, Benny.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. My name is Ben Acevedo, the Executive Director of Healthways, based in Daly City. And I'm calling on was Sarah. Were you called already?
Which Sarah?
Sarah from Tribe. Oh, there are two Sarah. Either Sarah or Sarah O'Brien. Okay.
We had a third Sarah even during the VEOAC meeting.
Yeah.
I've seen so many.
Oh. So let me call
Thank
on
you.
Sarah O'Brien then.
Hi, I think I know everybody. I'm from the elections office, and I'm going to call on one of my election office people. Wait, I thought I saw her there. Alicia, are you still on?
I don't see her. Maybe she dropped off.
Okay, Travis. Travis, was that you? Well, we have
Travis dialed in. Okay, no worries. Who have we missed? Has anyone not gone? Erica, have you gone? Yes. Okay. All right.
And somebody's on the phone. Who's on? Who's phone number 312? They're raising their hand.
They're raising their hand.
I don't know how do you unmute on the phone?
I don't. That's
There's a little tag next to the phone number if you hover over it.
It's unmuted now.
Oh, here we go.
Who's that?
It's muted again.
You're unmuted.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, hello?
Now he muted again.
Okay, all right, that's a very curious observer. But Clara, how about you?
Kayla Lacey with Morning Palo Alto.
Sorry, Kayla. Good to have you. Okay, and I think, did we get everyone?
Linda.
And Linda, yeah. Linda Wolin from Supervisor Dave Pine's office. I'm just listening in. Thank you.
And Jim.
Oh, and Jim. Okay.
Well, I mute challenged. I'm sorry, but hi.
All right. So anyway, so I think we all know Jim Zeri, and I think that is everyone. So we can get moving with the presentation. Thank you all for joining. I think we have everyone except one group here, but I'll follow up with that group to get some more information later. Let's get started on the presentation. Okay, everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So back to the agenda. We did the welcome and introductions. We're just flying through this. So the fund purpose. So for this fund, it was a little bit different than some of the other voter engagement, or I should say the predecessor voter engagement fund. The focus was really here very squarely on helping San Mateo County voters get the information they need to vote safely and securely in this election. And so, you know, there were a lot of barriers that we have, you know, that folks are facing, limited attention, longer lines at the polls historically, higher vote by mail rejection rates, et cetera, that we have been battling historically. And so we're trying to find some corrections for that by investing in the trusted messenger outreach that you all were doing. So here's some of the examples. So supporting community education programs for underrepresented voters in San Mateo County to learn more about the voting process, some of the issues on the ballot and their rights at the polls. And then organizing nonpartisan outreach programs to remind voters about the importance of weighing in on local issues. One thing for those of you who are not familiar with this voter engagement fund that I just want to make clear every time we talk about it is that there was a very strict prohibition on advocacy that we went through a lot of efforts to make sure.
Jack, I'm going to interrupt for a second. You keep your voice is fading in and out.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's odd. Okay. Is it stable now?
It sounds better. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Sorry about that. I thought I had pretty stable Wi-Fi, but maybe I don't. So anyway, so Petra, just interrupt me again if you can't hear me, but going quickly through this, but this is important for those of you who participated and may be learning. This was not used to fund advocacy programs. Organizations here took proactive measures to ensure that voters understood that the funds were not being used for this purpose. Should some incorrect language there, but anyway, there were 11 organizations that were funded here, so including many of the ones that have introduced themselves. We also did a similar program in the March election. Those organizations that met their targets in the March election were invited to participate again in November. And then we also did some additional outreach to organizations to fill some gaps that we had in some parts of San Mateo County, or with any particular regions in the county that we felt were not being reached as adequately as we needed. So I want to reserve the bulk of the time for this, which is sharing results from each of the different projects. And so we have quite a few to get through. So I'm going to individually call on organizations, and in the chat, I'll sort of put the order so you'll know kind of when you need to go. The goal was really to explain your project to folks that had no familiarity with your target population, the precincts that you're working in, and your strategy. And so we're hoping that you could also just give some quick highlights of results. We're not looking for an in-depth, day-by-day projection. It's more focusing on high-level results, right? The numbers of events that you may have held, the virtual events, the voters that you reach, the different ways in which you reach the voters, and then if you have any lessons learned. Obviously, this is a very different election than we have had in the past, but I think there's still going to be a lot of lessons learned, and particularly as we're trying to figure out exactly how we forward to the 2022 election and future years. So I'm going to start with Petra, if that's okay. If you could share a little bit more about the work that you did with Thrive Alliance, and then I'll put in the chat what the next groups are going from there. Okay?
Yes, I'm actually going to pass it to Sarah, who's going to put up a slide if she can.
Okay, so I will stop sharing.
Our strategy was a little bit different because we were doing a lot of support of other organizations, not just the organizations that were funded, but other organizations. We ended up having a large number of election partners, including I just want to shout out to, from our last meeting, Sandra Winter from Coastside Seniors was one of our election partners. So I'll let Sarah kind of go through the numbers quickly once she gets the PowerPoint up.
Thank you. I actually don't have a slide.
Oh, okay.
I won't share the numbers. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Hi, good morning. All right. So for Thrive, I think we have around 8 project output or results, and we consider all of them as successes, honestly, but I will discuss three of them as per the request in the meeting invite. So I would start with the newsletters. We sent out 6 weekly newsletters that included social media posts and suggestions, resources, upcoming and relevant events. One of these newsletters was a voter guide, and this one went out to all Thrive contact lists. So not only the voter engagement partners. So it was sent out to almost 1,500 contacts. We partnered with 25 amazing partners that serves different demographics and regions across the county. And one of the amazing results are the great community outreach number we received and were reported by our partners who utilized Thrive election materials. So the numbers for the people who were reached through social media were even more than 16,000. The number of people who were reached by handouts were more than 72,000. Through newsletters, teams were able to reach to more than 95,000. And through direct contact, we have a number of more than 11,000. So I think those are great numbers, great efforts by everyone. Thank you everyone who used these materials to do their outreach. In terms of challenges, I can say that we did not really face major setbacks or challenges. Maybe sometimes it used to be some delays in receiving some materials in certain translation, but it was not honestly a big thing to mention. So those are Thrive's updates or outputs. Thank you.
Great. So let's go to immigration. Should I say, are there any quick questions for Sarah or Petra? I think Todd. Okay. We'll go to Immigration Institute of the Bay Area. So Glenn or Cheryl, I'm not sure which one of you is going to present.
Hi, I can start us off, and then Glenn will give us some of the details. But our goals were to reach newly naturalized immigrants who became citizens in the last 4 years. So this would be their first presidential election that they would be voting in. And these were people who our organization helped in the naturalization process, either through our citizenship legal services or citizenship preparation classes. So we've had existing relationships with them. And we reached out directly to these folks using our in-house database to provide them with information about voter registration, as well as providing them with information about nonpartisan information about the content of the ballot, specifically the pros and cons on the propositions, and a little bit of the how-to on the logistics of voting by mail. And so we reached out directly and through phone banking and through mailing and emailing and texting. We held voter education forums. We trained community leaders, including young people, young immigrants, dreamers, and young college students who are bilingual to reach out and provide this information, and created a digital toolkit. And I'm going to invite Glenn to actually give the specifics on the numbers of our outcomes.
Great, thank you, Cheryl. And I just want to say our job was made incredibly, was helped a lot by a lot of you guys, partners. Thrive's information just made our outreach in San Mateo so much more effective than it would have been. And resources from people like Marnie at the League of Women Voters really were a backbone for a lot of this stuff. So, and Sarah for the Office of Elections. So in terms of the number of people we reached out to, we had 1,198, so 1,200 interactions with San Mateo residents. We separated that out we were doing outreach for our other counties, but specifically for San Mateo. The majority of those were by phone calls using phone banking, usually bilingual in Spanish. 642 of those were by phone calls, but we also used texts. We did one mailer using information about voting options, especially after where drop-off boxes were. And we sent emails as well as follow-ups. But phone banking was by far our most useful way of doing it. It's where people could ask questions and stuff like that. But we had a pretty good response rate for that too, which was nice. We also did 2 voter forums specifically for San Mateo residents. Again, we used materials from League of Women Voters for one of them, and we also, Sarah's office helped us organize one, or did it actually for people that we had invited to learn about elections from the San Mateo officials themselves. So that was incredibly helpful for the people we were reaching out to. And as Cheryl mentioned, we really tried to empower other people to become trusted messengers. So in the end, we count 27 that we sort of moved towards this for this specific grant. 18 of them were college students from Stanford, bilingual college students through Stanford, and 9 were from people that are part of our classes. We also reached out to the Sequoia Dreamer Club, and they helped provided tech support for people that were joining our forums. These are high schoolers who really jumped at the chance. They wanted to help out for people. It's easy for us to forget how hard Zoom is for people that like haven't been doing this forever now, or feels like forever. So that's something, thinking about that in the future is something we started to think about that, but thinking that more and more is like, what are the barriers to people participating that isn't just like the actual information about voting, but you forget how much you're using, even when you do something like join a Zoom call and stuff like that. And then, our social media director also made a digital toolkit that included links for that's on our webpage. You could see it's to all the different info about voting deadlines and things like that. So our people visiting our website or pointed towards our website was a place where they would find the links they needed to do voter stuff. So we try to hit this population that Cheryl talked about as many ways as possible. I think I covered all of it, but yeah, sorry.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Glenn and Cheryl. It's great to hear what IIBA was doing and the partnerships that you all had. Okay, so we're going to go to Rolando from Boys and Girls Clubs of North San Mateo County next, and I'm going to put the next 3 groups in the chat so you can see when you're going. Okay, Rolando?
Great. Thank you, Jack. Again, good morning, everyone. So glad we're able to share with this great group kind of the work that we've done. And it was really exciting work. It was really built upon what we did for the primaries. So we really learned a lot from that process, and we're able to really catapult us into kind of another stage for these elections. But before I begin, again, I want to echo what Glenn just said a couple of minutes ago, and thanking Sarah's and the Petras of the world and the Jacks of the world. I think your information, your toolkits that were coming steadily, and the updates were just tremendous information for us, because we didn't have to, it was really a one-stop shop. And I want to highlight that for best practices moving forward, because we were able to grab that information. It was already translated in a lot of them, and we were able to put them into our email bulletins and send those out and add different pieces to it. So it really made almost like a key, a turnkey operation, which I think was terrific. So we did a couple of stages, and the culmination for us, and I'll share with you, was one major event at our facility, which I'll talk about in a second. But we really started with phone banking. Again, this was a lesson learned from the primaries. So we have about 5,000 people in our membership network. We targeted about 300 of our families with direct calls. The calls were kind of two-phased. One was to talk about the after-school programs and kind of what we were doing, but the other one was to talk about voting and the importance of voting, and also letting them know that we were going to be sending out information pretty quickly on steps that they can take, or just inform them on that. We noticed that a lot of our parents were very appreciative of that personal call and walking them through the process. The second thing we did, and again, kudos to the team at the Boys and Girls Clubs of North San Mateo County, just for their innovativeness, I think. What we were able to do was we created a banner that said, "I voted." And we put this banner outside of our clubhouse, pretty large banner. I sent a picture to Jack this morning of it. And our goal was to put 300 stickers, "I voted" stickers on there. So parents would come by the clubhouse, put their sticker on, and then once they did that, they received a goodie bag and a book for their children. So we noticed, we were obviously pushing ourselves to say, okay, how many stickers do we have today? And we were counting all our stickers, "I voted" stickers all over the place. And we were able to pass out a lot of goodie bags. That was a really fun thing. And it was able for us to track that our messaging was working. Parents were coming out. They were putting their sticker on that banner, which was a lot of fun. We launched 3 email bulletins. These bulletins were very chocked with great information. We tried to not overload it because there is a lot of great information out there. So we try to streamline that. We work with some young people to help us make our email bulletins look attractive and kind of new, you know, and kind of innovative. So so it sparked interest when people did want to open it rather than just a big lengthy email with a ton of information. That really worked. I want to thank Linda Wolin too, that's on the line, because she connected me with the young man who, Javier, who just did some great work, and we were able to work with his team to help us with some emails that they were able to put together for us. And then all this really was trending toward kind of a major event at our clubhouse. I mentioned this before, and I'll talk about the parameters and I'll end here, was for the last 30 years, we've had a huge event every Halloween called the Monster Bash at our facilities. Hundreds and hundreds of families come out in South City for this event. It's very well known. It's been in the community forever. And obviously this year we didn't have that. But what we were able to have in its place was a trick, treat, and vote event, which what happened was we have a pretty large parking lot in front of Orange Park, and we were able to invite a very cool car club that came out. They had these old school cars and beautiful hydraulic cars and all this stuff. And then we were able to space them out along our whole kind of parking lot, you know, obviously more than 6 feet apart, of course. And then we had, you know, children and community come out, about 100 in total. We were able to really kind of have gatekeepers in the beginning of our parking lot to allow, you know, 20 at a time to go in and kind of tour the car club. But at the same time, we had staff at each one of our cars that were able to talk to parents firsthand about voting, the importance of voting, and giving them information. So not only did their kids collect candy, but their parents also were able to get a lot of great information for that. So we kind of had a little bit of a spin on our last event, but it was a culmination to kind of the events that we've had in past times. Just looking through my notes to make sure I got everything. So the important part there was we had about 100 people, we spaced them out, and kids really enjoyed, our families truly enjoyed this event just because it had a little bit of interaction to it, though it was all according to spaced out, and obviously we can't have the precautions in place. But again, we were able to kind of have somewhat of a framework of an event that was a culmination to the work that we were doing, you know, when we were kind of called upon to do this great work along with everyone else on the line. So I'll end there, but I want to thank everybody again for that opportunity. It was a lot of fun this time around, and we learned a lot from the primary work, which I just want to echo that. I think that's important.
Great, thanks, Rolando. I'm having some audio trouble, so apologies if you all can't hear me, but we're gonna go to Mid-Penn Boys and Girls Club, followed by One East Palo Alto, and then Nuestra Casa, okay? So Erica? Yep.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Okay, I'll keep my part brief because I really want to highlight all the work that Karen did. But generally what we did, we reached families and members in 2 parts. We did, like, majority of them were through virtual impressions on social media. And we also did our in-person food distribution program that we do weekly. And we would reach around an average of like 1,000 family members. And majority of them were actually adults between the ages of 18 to 60. So that was really great. Majority of that was like 567 adults. And then we had 198 seniors. And they were already familiar with the work that we've done with the census. So they were already pretty much prepared to learn more about voting, and that was really great. The reception there was really, it was very positive, and we also did a lot of youth PSAs where we got the kids to go ahead and showcase what they were learning about voter engagement through Karen. So I really want to pass it on there. It was great work.
Thanks, Erica. So what we did for voter education with our youth is we partnered with the Daly City Youth Advisory Commission, and we did a 5-part series to really dive into like the history of voter oppression, voter engagement, voter education, really diving into essentially the different racial groups as well, and the way that campaigns market to those communities. And so we wanted to build a foundation for the youth in that regard. And then we also train them in facilitation skills to kind of prepare them for when they have to have conversations with individuals who are of the age to vote. And so the youth actually led a conversation with people from different generations. So we had anywhere from like an 8th grader to our high school students to adults in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, which was really, really great to get everyone's perspective. So that was amazing. We also did a partnership with Heartblasters Clothing. So they are a youth-based clothing brand, and they also have a blog, and they're an incredible supporter. So anytime I posted anything, they would immediately repost and share it on their platform. So we would increase views. They also shared out shirts because they created like a special shirt for voting as well, and like sent it to our youth to like model it and to get the youth excited about voting, but also it allowed the youth to create a magazine like publication. And we also implemented their PSAs into the publication. It was embedded through QR codes, and we quoted them in the publication, which was also shared out through Heartblaster Clothing. And then we also had the PSAs on our public platform. And then we also had a student from South San Francisco who was also part of our census program. And she actually went through the process to help at the polls. And so she came in and made a whole bunch of graphics and information for us to post on social media. So that was really amazing. And I think that kind of covers, I think that was pretty much what we were able to do online through Zoom and through programs in that area. Am I missing anything, Erica? I think that covers it.
Yeah, I think Karen did a ton of social media posts, which actually received like around 5,000, 5,100 impressions, which was really impressive too, within the whole month of October. So that was great.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Karen and Erica. Can you all hear me now? Okay, I have literally a brand new computer. It's 2 days old that my work gave me, and it doesn't work. So wonderful. But going with these super old headphones that amazingly can work. Okay, so next is, I think we're going to One East Palo Alto. Is that what I said? Yes. So Elise, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Jack. Thanks, everybody. So a lot of our partners here, we were utilizing a lot of the strategies that we were already using for our community engagement work, which included, a regular newsletter that we sent out through Constant Contact, utilizing our youth that were already mobilized for census work. So I'm just going to run through some of our numbers. We had 4 main goals through our work. And one of them was reaching our community and our membership and network through electronic newsletters and flyers. And we reached over 5,000 people through electronic newsletters, and also through weekly food distribution, partnering with the school district. We used our own original flyers, which are always translated into Spanish, Samoan, and Tongan, and we also utilize a lot of the materials from the county. We conducted 10 shifts of phone banking with our youth EPA cohort, which had worked through census. And so for the first half of it, we coupled it with census messaging. And then for the last 3 shifts, which was immediately after census wrapped, we really focused on reaching communities about just getting out to vote, voting early, sending in their ballots, where to drop it off. And we reached over 2,000. We're still counting our phone banking numbers. Unfortunately, we don't have access to some of the voter databases. We can't afford it. So we got our hands on a voter list of, I think, 10,000 or no, 100,000 East Palo Alto residents. More than half of those numbers were bad. We were able to capture some email addresses that we added to our email list. And so we're trying to be really creative with that. We distributed posters and print materials at 33 local businesses. And, most of those that were open are likely liquor stores, gas stations, and then restaurants. And also those were in English, Spanish, Samoan, and Tongan. And then last but not least, we trained over 25 youth ambassadors. Half of them were doing our phone banking, and then the other half just 100% engaged on social media. They developed TikTok videos that we were able to share across different platforms. And then we partnered with Pacifica Vote, which is a statewide group that's working on engaging Pacific Islanders. And we contributed to a town hall that reached over 5,000 people. So just trying to be really creative and partnering and incorporating it into our existing programs. That's it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Lucy. Wonderful. Okay, Julio, over to you. And I'll put the next three organizations in the chat.
Thank you, Jackson. So we did, we have a food distribution program in East Palo Alto and Redwood City, Wednesdays and Saturdays. So we did over probably 10,000 election materials passed to people there. So, you know, just keeping the social distancing. So that covered Redwood City, North Fair Oaks, and East Palo Alto. Also, we have a distribution list of probably around, say, 4,500 people that we text messages. So we were testing messages to them, English and Spanish, about elections. So, you know, it's a really nice platform that we're using right here. Social media, we were posting every day. I don't have the number for social media, but we were posting every single day. We did conduct 2 interviews with El Tecolote and Telemundo. I think El Tecolote is a newspaper and Telemundo was in the news about borders and, you know, just prisons right here. We cover 6 prisons right here in East Palo Alto. We have probably over 15 promotoras and volunteers that cover that 3 Saturdays in a row. So we took like 2 prisons at a time, and we just hanging up stuff in, you know, doors and everything. And we did something really unusual this time because we were running the elections with an environmental justice partner academy. We did a candidate forum. We have over 140 participants in the candidate forum, and we invited all the upcoming candidates in East Palo Alto, and we asked questions about environmental justice, housing, and, you know, the position and water quality in East Palo Alto. So I think that's just about it. So yeah, I think, you know, just one of the things that, you know, like covering the news, and they're asking for areas of prisons that we have in East Palo Alto, and I was all clarifying with them that a lot of prisons, they say, oh, we have a prison that is low turnout. Yes, you have a prison that is very low turnout because it's the industrial area of East Palo Alto, so it's no houses there. So they were coming out with those questions. So I need to, you know, kind of, in the future, we can work with Petra and everything just to identify like industrial areas where it's not, that we don't have houses there. And they say, oh, it's a low turnout. Yes, it is, because nobody lives there. But I think that's about it. So thank you all.
Thanks, Julio. And if we have time for discussion, we can dig into that question too. I think it'd be valuable to get other folks' ideas about turnout figures. Okay, Marnie, over to you.
Hey, hi everybody. I'm Marnie Rubin with League of Women Voters, South San Mateo County. And it's great to see everyone. We're really proud of the work that we did, and we're so happy to be able to just say thank you to the Elections Office and Thrive and SFPPP and the Board of Supervisors, just everybody. It was really a team effort, and we really enjoyed building our relationships moving forward with all of you. So thank you for that. Just as a quick reminder, our project was our grant goals were to work with 10 precincts in the North Fair Oaks area of Redwood City, and then 1 precinct in Bellhaven, to move the needle in terms of those were the most underrepresented, quote unquote, areas. And we wanted to just move the needle and get voter turnout up in those areas as best we could. They were anywhere from 50 to 75% Latinx, Spanish speaking. So we really wanted to focus on getting everything in English and Spanish. And we ended up working with those precincts, the additional precincts in Bellhaven, And then some precincts in East Palo Alto as well, we were able to reach out to. So it ended up being closer to about 20 precincts. So we're excited about that. The original number of registered voters was about 9,500 for our original goals. We ended up making about 30,000 distinct touch points. So we're estimating that each registered voter in those areas was reached at least 3 times, maybe more. And so what we ended up doing, reaching them at least 2 or 3 times. All touch points were in English and Spanish, and I'll talk about what all those touch points were, at least some of them. We feel like we, gave info on safe and secure voting. We built the League of Women Voters as a nonpartisan trusted messenger within these groups, and we also reinvested in the communities themselves. So we're really happy about that. The challenges were obviously COVID. Like Rolando, we based our strategy on our primary work, but of course with COVID, everything needed to be virtual. So we were able to do that successfully. Spanish speaking, working with the Spanish speaking communities, we really had to reach out to a lot of different groups to make sure that all of our materials were in Spanish, translated. So that was a challenge for us, but we made it made it work. We focused a lot on mailings. So we sent over 14,000 postcard mailings, the 5x8, with vote early messaging at the beginning, and then where to vote as our second wave of mailings. We did a lot of phone banking and text banking, like a lot of the other groups. We did over 4,000 dials and texts to our folks. And one thing that we did track all of that, all of the bad numbers or reach this person, or we tracked all of that. And so we'll be sending that to the elections office. And Sarah O'Brien was mentioning that actually could help them update their voter rolls. So hopefully that will help moving forward to have more accurate voter rolls. We did a lot of community partnerships with We Vote, Redwood City. We partnered with Sequoia High School's Atlas Leadership Program, and those were, they really helped us to reach out to Spanish-speaking students and our Spanish-speaking voter outreach specialist program. And we're proud of that because we hired 10 community organizers that we called voter outreach specialists. So we were able to hire them to help us with phone banking and jotting notes on our mailings and a lot of that stuff, and invested $4,000 back into the community. So they all live in Redwood City or East Palo Alto or Belhaven. So we were happy about that. We had about 50 volunteers just through the league and through different folks from the community helping us with our outreach. And we did high school and community college outreach to about 1,000 students. We did about 10 online Zooms and a little bit of outreach to the veterans community as well with the VA. So again, through the elections office. So everything from students, Gen Z to vets and everyone in between, with a focus on Spanish speakers. Yeah, excited to see the numbers. If we actually move the needle in those groups or in the precincts. But we hope that we did, and we appreciate everybody's help on really doing outreach in this crazy year. I'm glad it's over. I hope we helped. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Marnie. Okay, moving right along, Venny, over to you.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm going to make my my sharing very brief, but let me start by saying that when Jack asked me about numbers that to do personal contacts, I easily said yes. That was doable because we already had a lot of contacts in the community. As a matter of fact, between February and May, I've been going with one of the county supervisors in the community to promote the census. And then when we started implementing this voter education or voter outreach, people were, were making the suspicion that I was really endorsing this candidate, or they thought that I was running for public office. And I said, no, we're just educating everybody in the community about this upcoming election. And then they said, no, you're running for public office because we saw you in church, we saw you in the temple. I said, yeah, if that's your suspicion, that's fine. But will you go? I started from the question, will you be voting for me? And then they said, oh yeah, if we see your name. And then they said, you will never see my name because I'm not running for public office. But the message that we're trying to relate to you is that please participate in the election. And then that started everything. So first we started the printing with Healthways developed a flyer, a very simple flyer that says, let me see. It says, our votes are important for democracy works best when we participate. And then we put some information about how to register, where to go. As a matter of fact, the most common question that we got prior to the election is that where should they be voting? So we provided them, we connected them with the county links where the precincts would be, are listed, I should say. And then another common question is that where do I drop my, my ballot? So those were the very common questions that we've been getting from. But fortunately, we had the answer, so we were able to help them. How did we reach out to the community? There were three ways. First, let me share with you our experience with PDI. We registered 3 numbers, but when we requested our volunteers to use the PDI, they were reluctant because according to them, it was so complicated for them, for first-time users of the PDI, and it was really complicated. So what we did, or what Healthways did, was to, open that database and gleaned out the numbers or the list of voters for Colma, Daly City, South San Francisco, San Bruno, and Pacifica. And then we got their numbers, and then we called, not using the PDI line connection, but on our own 3 phones that we have registered. That's why in the PDI, it looks like Healthways did not do anything, but in reality, we did. So aside from these PDI calls, Healthways has also its database, and we started from there. We printed these flyers, about 100, and then distributed it to individual registered voters. We had to make sure that the recipient of these flyers that we developed were voters, and we used that as to start, the dissemination of this information within the community. And aside from from the reprinting or multiplying these flyers, people themselves have been copying and distributing these flyers either through messaging or through the individual, through the physical flyer itself. So we have mobilized clients as volunteers to do the calls or outreach up to the 4th level. The issue or the challenge that we have, on the part of Healthways, is to monitor the different levels of calls. For example, the first, I called person 1, and then we requested her or him to call his friend or family, and that family is requested to call another person. So that was the difficulty that we had in monitoring the exact, number of people that were reached through the phone calls. So the other thing that we did was through messaging, because text messaging was the most common. That we found out that the text messaging was the most common and practical way of communicating.
Hey, Venny, sorry to cut you off. We only have a couple minutes left, and we have one more group to get through. Is there a way you could wrap it up?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in a way, we have reached out to to the expectation that we have promised in the proposal that we submitted. So with that said, it was a fun implementing this project. So
excellent.
that's it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Adam, going to you, and then I have a couple slides, so I hope we don't have to go over, but I'm just going to run through those slides at the end. So Adam, over to you.
Hi there, everybody. Yeah, so South San Francisco Public Library with the 29-day vote center for North San Mateo County, we had a few thousand people vote in person at the vote center. And of course, many more probably used the ballot drop box. So yeah, our goal was to reach South San Francisco voters, those, you know, typically underrepresented in a couple different neighborhoods with multilingual information on how to vote safely, and especially promoting that they have a vote center in South San Francisco. Also gearing towards, you know, just generally our following in our newsletters and social media. We were able to reach several thousand people virtually through those channels. Many people from North San Mateo County. So hopefully, yeah, we made a difference in the turnout this year. I think it's the 6th time the library has been a vote center, in-person vote center, since I think 2016 was the first time. And after that, we even got a banner on 101 on the billboard. So who knows how many people saw that, but that's potentially a lot, reminding people to register to vote and to vote. So,
awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool, thank you, Adam, appreciate that. So thanks to all the groups. I'm glad we had everyone an opportunity to go. One thing I just want to say up front is, you know, you all did phenomenal work, and this is a really great set of organizations, and we're really proud to have supported you all. And we hope to continue this relationship. One thing that's important to note is that I'm just going to share my screen for the couple minutes that we have left here, is that we are hopeful that you can share, there's the turnout figures, but that you can share any materials that you developed with me, so that we can document that and show to the county and, you know, to the leadership of the county just the wonderful materials that you were able to develop, and how important it is to get materials in special language just to appeal to the trusted messengers. I do want to quickly go over this. This is preliminary data. You know, as Jim mentioned, if you were on the previous call, they're still counting. So we're still trying to figure out exactly where we're at, you know, with each of the precincts. But I did pull up the 2016 turnout and the 2020 turnout. Overall in the county, we were up by about 5%, which is great. In some of the targeted areas that I want to just draw attention to, in East Palo Alto is between 4 and 8% up. In Central San Mateo, it was about 3 to 6% up. Daly City, 3 to 7% up. I'm sorry, I miswrote that. It's 7 to 3. Yeah, so between 3, but some precincts were up 7% or more, which is great. South City was up 6%. And Redwood City, we did not see as much of an increase as we would have expected. I think, you know, again, these are preliminary numbers. Let's not put too much stock in them. I'll circle back with folks when we have the final numbers and make sure to share the precinct by precinct changes and work with the county to get that information. But anyway, these are preliminary numbers, and I think they speak to the work that you all did. We're up more than the state was, and the gap, you know, was closed quite a bit. So I think that that's something that's phenomenal, and we need to call out. Anyway, moving forward. So those of you who participated in this fund in the last time, this is going to look familiar to you. I'm going to do check-in calls. There's not going to be a written report that you need to submit. You will need to submit a financial report to us, which is pretty standard. I'm going to send out the template for those financial reports after. You just need to report on exactly how you spent the money. And of course, make sure to keep your receipts and any other proof of expenses, because these are public funding. And so we just want to make sure that we're being as diligent as possible about the spending. I'm going to try to collect stories, and Marnie had a great point in the chat. Yeah, I wish we had more time so we could talk about this. We're going to try to work with our marketing and communications team at SVCF to figure out about how we can get more of these stories covered in the local media and elsewhere, because I think, you know, you all did phenomenal work here, and it deserves to get press attention to highlight exactly what you all did. One thing that a lot of you may have seen, because I emailed you all about it, I think twice, is that we have a new grant making opportunity, which is from the SPCF Community Catalyst Fund, which we just opened. It's not public funding, it's from the Community Foundation, but it's an opportunity specifically for organizations that are working to serve the needs of your communities after the 2020 election. So think about like all the great engagement that you saw, you know, whether it's the protest this summer, the high turnout in this election. We want to keep that going. In the census, right, in San Mateo County, we want to make sure that this high level of civic engagement is really continuing, so that we have a democracy, an electorate that reflects the will of San Mateo County and also just Silicon Valley more generally. So those are grants up to $30,000. There's a preference for small organizations, so those under $1 million or close to $1 million in annual budgets, and those organizations that are led by people of color, Black, Indigenous, people of color organizations. So if you want more information, I'll email it again, so you have it with you. The deadline to apply is Wednesday, December 2nd at 11:59 p.m. We are going to develop a report and send it to Jim and Sarah and Travis, reflecting all the work that you did, and I'll be sure to share it with you so you can see a little bit more about what happened. And then we'll also be sure what was I going to say? We'll be sure to share that report with you, and also to continue discussions with San Mateo County and Jim and Sarah and the team, so we can hopefully be a little bit more ahead of the game, and if we do want to revive this wonderful program through our partnership with San Mateo County Elections Office. We are at 11. I know that's a lot of information I squeezed in that last 3 minutes there, but look out for a follow-up email from me. And Jim, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I do want to add, I want to thank you very much. I want to thank all of the community-based organizations for an absolutely fantastic, terrific effort, certainly added to the success of this election. And I believe we're building a template for the future. It's so important. What I'm seeing, and I'm sure all of you are experiencing the same thing, is that communication, transparency, and openness in the process is essential to the integrity of elections, and you folks were a critical part of that. And on behalf of Mr. Church and myself, I want to thank you all for just a fantastic effort and a great job.
Excellent. Well, that's a wonderful note to end on. And Jim, we thank you so much for your confidence and the confidence that you place in all these organizations that have done such great work. Great. Okay. Well, with that, I'll let you get back to your, what is today, Wednesday? Your Wednesdays. And feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I am going to share the slides from this presentation, as well as some other information. So look out for that. And again, feel free to reach out to me at any point if you have any questions about the next steps. Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.